Jordan Schultz, NFL insider, mentioned 3 teams when it comes to Trey Hendrickson and a possible trade. Okay? Trey Hendrickson is, for reference, a late bloomer in the NFL, but is he led the NFL in sacks last year, and that's a stat that most people care about, right? That is a stat that most teams and fans would be excited to have the leader in that particular stat on their team. So, as I bring up the tweet here, a lot of stuff going on today. The Panthers, Browns, and Colts were listed by him among the teams that have shown interest in trading for Bengals All-Pro Trey Hendrickson, per multiple sources. He adds that a in-division and in-state trade is highly unlikely, so the Browns would be battling uphill for Trey Hendrickson. But that leaves Panthers and Colts. Cincinnati is believed to want an impact player or 2 plus a draft pick in return, according to Schultz. So the question quickly turns to, should the Panthers do it? Should they give up a potential impact player or 2 and draft picks for the honor to pay Trey Hendrickson, I will conservatively say $35 million a year? Because he is holding out from the Bengals for a new contract, so he's not going to agree to go somewhere else to play for pennies, right? You're going to have to trade for him and then pay him. This is where I wish, and I will here because I can. I answer that question with a question of my own. Should the Panthers do it? My question is, what changed? All offseason, they avoided the high-priced veteran players. They did not go after the big price tag, big splashy signings. They didn't do it. They brought in mostly younger guys, right? They brought in mostly even guys like Trevon Merrick, right? Even guys like Tershawn Wharton, guys that they brought in and paid a decent amount of money are still like mid-20s, right? Even if they've played through their rookie contracts, they're not in those ages that start with 3s that are so scary. It doesn't happen very often that a 30-plus-year-old gets traded for, say, a first-round pick plus. It doesn't happen that often. So what changed? This whole offseason, you've been building with young players. You've been building with kind of the financially responsible deals. Big deals, but not necessarily record-breaking deals. What changed that would make this one an option? Can we hypothesize on some things that changed? Let's do it. Did someone get it way wrong with some of the players on the roster? Right? Is there a moment in practice where you were watching going, uh-oh, these guys that we were going to be depending on to be our pass rush, I don't know, we want to be dependent on those guys to get our pass rush started, so we better go, even if we have to overspend, get a guy that we can depend on, and that would absolutely be Trey Hendrickson, which would be a bummer. That would be I appreciate acknowledging your mistakes, right? That would be kind of a humble thing to do rather than to just be stubborn and say, no, my analytics say this guy's going to be good, he's going to be good. If you see it, you know it's not good enough, you go fix it. That's I would say better than the reverse of seeing it, knowing it's not good enough and not doing anything. But it would still be a bummer that you missed. Another thing that could change, and this is what I really hope isn't happening. Did someone get a potential update on their job security that makes it more likely that they need to win now? So it's suddenly, who cares if they're young? Who cares if they're good 3 years from now? Who cares if this contract looks bad 3-4 years into the future? Who cares? I might not even be here. We need to win this year for me to have a chance. So let's win this year and figure out the future when it needs to be figured out. Right? All offseason, you think you got, maybe 2 more years to rebuild and slowly build everything. You get a little update, and suddenly it's like, you know what? What veterans? How much would Terry McLaurin be? Where's Hendrickson? Would Dallas take like 1/3 of Carolina's gross domestic product in order for Micah Parsons to have let's crank this bad boy up? Did that happen? Or here's option number 3, and this would be the sometimes the simplest answer is right under your nose is the right answer. Is this report simply just Dan Morgan calling and exploring the market, and it's being built up as more?
I feel like option 3.
Is it just, hey, Hendrickson, huh? So how bad is your relationship?
Yeah. What would it cost to get Trey?
Because, 4th rounder? No, all right, that's cool. And then all of a sudden Jordan Schultz hears, Dan Morgan called. Boom, put him up there. Colts. Boom, Browns. Boom, Panthers. Send. Right? It's these insider leaks are always, I always say consider the source. It's an insider, right? Which means somebody told him, right? This is not coming from the team or an agent, which could be like a first-person source. This is an insider, so somebody passed along that information. Who does that report benefit? Well, the Bengals, right? Anybody that might have to trade Trey Hendrickson wants to make sure everybody knows that, say, the Colts aren't the only caller, right? If the Browns are the only one honestly calling, what should you do? Well, you leak that a few other teams are calling and that it's going to be way more difficult for the Browns to make the trade happen because they're going to pay extra because it's in state. Right? They like consider the source. So this could easily be, Dan Morgan called. Maybe Dan Morgan's been talking with Eric Tulsky of the Carolina Hurricanes, whose like rule is I'm going to be in on every conversation.
Yeah.
I'm calling. I'm a stage 5 clinger. I'm calling every GM once a day just to say like, you got anything in the mix? What about this guy? What about this guy? What about this guy? Maybe Dan Morgan's been talking to him, so he's like, oh, Hendrickson's on the market. I should call and get in the conversation. Maybe they need somebody to toss in a third for a player that we like, just to orchestrate the deal, get the wheels flowing.
Never hurts to ask.
Maybe that's it, right? Because the first two get me very, very scared, right? If you're looking at your pass rush, which, by the way, I think we gave Dan Morgan a lot of credit. He was patient, and he appeared, or at least sounded to us, and we talked to him about it on this show, sound like he played the draft board great, right? He really wanted a player like Nick Scorton or Princely Umanmielen and ended up getting both, right? So he picked the right one, waited on the right one, didn't take the guy in the first round, got his wide receiver, still got two. Like it looked like he kind of solved the pass rush, went and got, was it Patrick Smith, right? Am I doing
Pat Jones?
Pat Jones. Why do I keep doing that?
I don't know.
Just the generic last name. Could have been Jones, Smith, Carter, Williams. Anyway, went and got guys that he seemed to intentionally go after, right? He was made a couple moves very early in free agency, which tells me like position A. And then he went and got two guys that he seemed to like in the draft. If now he's looking at his edge rushers and going, uh-oh. That guy didn't pan out like I wanted. That guy hasn't been as advertised in practice. That guy might be more of a depth piece. We need to go get somebody. That's how you end up overpaying for a player who doesn't fit your build. And then the opposite, if somebody hinted that job security's on the line and they need to go get win now players to make sure, hey, if we get 7 wins instead of 9, we lose our jobs. That's not the right way to handle a roster either, because then you're giving up future assets that you shouldn't in order to scrape together another win or two, and I don't think they're there yet.
Oh, you mean like Scott Fitterer?
Yes, exactly.
Pretty much what it is. And now here's the thing about that potential trade, or at least what reportedly is being asked for by Cincinnati for Trey Hendrickson. Picks along with a player that can play right now and a young one. The Panthers defensively don't have a lot of people expendable from their defense as is. So if you give up one of your better defensive players, I mean, it might just be a net negative in all honesty because, okay, you bring back Trey Hendrickson, but do you have to give up Umanmielen? Do you have to give up Nick Scorton? Do you have to give up a Trayvon Merrick? So what is the end? Like, what's the end result? It's not like you have a plethora of players that we can afford to give up 2 good ones to get a great one in return. This team can't afford that.
The way I would guess the trade would be formatted would be either a first or a second and a fourth, right? Like something along those lines, plus probably Nick Scorton. If his collapsed lung comes through,
yeah,
and then maybe even a depth piece from your offense, right? Maybe I don't know, an offensive lineman that has played, maybe a Cade Mays, something along those lines. And That's a hefty price tag,
Yeah.
but you'd be betting that the gap between Nick Scorton to Trey Hendrickson is not 3 sacks, right? It's 10. You know what I mean? That's what you'd be betting on. I don't think you should do it because it goes against everything that I feel is true as a roster build. You build for windows. Trey Hendrickson will, in his 30s, will be on the very tail end of his effectiveness and of his contract by the time you're ready to chase rings. And Hendrickson is the kind of guy that you get when you are a Trey Hendrickson away from chasing rings.
Like Buffalo should go get Trey Hendrickson.
Buffalo could go get Trey Hendrickson.
Washington.
Washington would be interesting to go get Trey Hendrickson. Maybe one of their young players could be Brian Robinson, who they're shopping. There's options there. There's a few different teams that I think it makes sense. I'm not saying don't get Trey Hendrickson because he's not good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying don't get Trey Hendrickson because it doesn't make sense for you to condense assets right now. You've got a lot of holes in your roster. Don't take 4 potential solutions for holes and turn them into one really good solution. As I hit the microphone.
Yeah.
One really good solution for a gap in your roster. And then also, actually, it'd probably be more than, it'd be like a couple picks, couple players, plus the money that you could go spend on in free agency later. It might be like 6 gap fillers in your roster for one really good one. It's just you're not to that point yet. You're way more than one player away. But I respect the call if it was just a call. I respect the earnestness to be in the mix. I like that.